Okay, so the world is pretty much at a breaking point. You've got these two incredibly powerful forces on a collision course, and honestly, the outcome is going to define our entire century. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down what's being called the Great Rupture and what it really means for all of us.
Our story kicks off right here in Davos, Switzerland, at the World Economic Forum. This is where the big players in business, politics, tech, they all get together to kind of take the planet's temperature. And in January 2026, the diagnosis was, well, let's just say unsettling. And to really get why, you don't have to sift through a ton of reports. It really just comes down to two numbers from this massive global survey of leaders. And these two figures, they just perfectly capture the anxiety of this moment. First up, this. In just a single year, the number of leaders ranking geopolitical uncertainty as a top 5 risk jumped by a staggering 10 percentage points. I mean, that is the single biggest jump on the entire list. The ground beneath our feet is definitely shifting.
And then, right on its heels, you have this. Just behind geopolitics, the risk of digital disruption, and that includes AI, saw a massive 9-point jump. So what you've got are these two massive tidal waves of change, both building up at the exact same time.
Right, so this isn't just a story about politics or even just a story about tech. This is the story of that collision. It's really about what happens when this shaky, unstable world order crashes right into a technology that's changing literally everything. Okay, so let's dig into the geopolitics first. To really get a feel for what that 10-point jump in risk means, we gotta listen to someone who got up on that Davos stage and basically decided to just tell it like it is. Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England and a huge voice in global finance. So Carney kicks off his speech with this really powerful, kind of weird command. It is time for companies and countries to take their signs down. And you're probably thinking, what on earth does that even mean? Well, it turns out he was pulling from this really powerful idea from a Czech dissident writing back under communist rule. The whole idea is called living within a lie. It comes from Václav Havel's famous essay. He told this story about a greengrocer, right? This guy puts a sign in his shop window that says, "Workers of the world unite." Not because he actually believes in it, but because, it's what you're supposed to do. It's a ritual just to signal you're on board and to stay out of trouble. And that is Carney's brilliant and honestly pretty brutal diagnosis. He's saying that for decades, the entire world has been living within a lie. We all kind of put that same sign in our window for the rules-based international order. We all knew it was sort of a fiction, that the most powerful countries would just bend the rules when they wanted to. But the fiction was useful. It gave us stability. But now, that whole fiction is just collapsing. And you can see it right in the data. The numbers from that risk report, they back him up 100%. In just 1 year, the number of leaders who see this whole thing breaking down as a top risk just shot up from 28% to 38%. It's like all the greengrocers are finally taking their signs down. But here's the thing. This anxiety, it isn't spread out evenly across the globe. This feeling that the rules just don't apply anymore, it's really, really strong in the West. In North America, Europe, and Latin America, 45% of leaders see it as a top risk. In fact, if you look at North America, they saw a mind-blowing 19-point spike in just a single year. Wow. Okay, so the old order is fracturing. Got it. Now, let's throw in that second ingredient, the one that's basically pouring gasoline on this whole geopolitical fire: artificial intelligence. Because AI, you see, it isn't just another piece of tech. It's an accelerant. It makes everything go faster. And to really get the stakes here, let's turn to another major voice from that same Davos stage, Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google DeepMind, one of the leading minds on AI in the entire world. And his take on the global AI races is, well, it's pretty stark. He's basically saying China is closing the gap, and they're doing it fast. So Hassabis kind of lays it out like this. On one side, you have the West, especially companies like his. They've been the ones coming up with the big, game-changing breakthroughs, the stuff that really pushes the frontier. And then you've got China. They've gotten incredibly good at catching up to whatever the West invents, but they haven't really shown yet that they can innovate beyond it. So yeah, the race is definitely on. So here's the key takeaway, the really crucial point. AI isn't just about cool tech anymore. AI supremacy is now a fundamental part of national power. We're talking economic dominance, military advantages, geopolitical influence, the whole shebang. The tech race and the arms race, they're basically becoming the same thing. All right, so the world order is broken, and this new tech arms race is just making everything more chaotic. So the million-dollar question is, what do you do about it, right? How do countries, especially the ones caught between these great powers, how do they survive and maybe even thrive? And Mark Carney, he really puts the choice in the starkest terms imaginable. He's saying, look, for these middle power countries, just sitting back and waiting is not an option. If you do that, you're going to get crushed. You have to fight for your seat at the table. Okay, so how do you actually do that? Carney laid out this pretty clear four-part strategy. First, be pragmatic. You got to deal with the world as it is, not how you wish it was. Second, build up your strength at home in really key areas like energy, AI, and defense. Third, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You've got to diversify your partnerships. And finally, team up. Build these flexible coalitions, working with different partners on different issues.
And you know what? Demis Hassabis offered a really similar kind of strategy, but for the technology side of things. He basically argued that for a lot of countries, the smart move isn't to try and go head-to-head with the US and China, building these gigantic AI models. Nope. The real opportunity, the gold mine, is in taking the incredible tech that's already out there and applying it to your own unique industries and strengths.
So, okay, when you put these two massive pieces together, this breakdown of the old political rules and the explosion of this new technological power, you start to get a really clear picture of the era we're all living in now. And Carney's final word on it was just incredibly blunt. He says, look, this is not some gentle transition into a new phase. This is a rupture, a hard, clean break with the past. Plain and simple, the way the world has worked for decades, it's over. That old bargain we had, pretending the rules were real just to keep things stable, that deal is off the table. And like Carney said, just looking back and feeling nostalgic for that old world, well, that's not a strategy. It's not going to save you. Which, of course, leaves us with the single biggest question of our time. And it's not just for nations or big companies. It's a question for every single one of us. When you're in this new, totally uncharted territory, when the old maps are useless and you've got these incredibly powerful new tools in your hands, who gets to write the future? Who gets to write the rules for whatever comes next?